Well, that was a rousing opener to start the action here on a Thursday. Really nice Thursday in Miami Gardens at Gulfstream Park West. Acacia Courtney, Jason Blewett alongside and ready to go. Another 8-race card. And once again, fall has arrived here in South Florida, and it's pretty awesome.
It really is awesome. Beautiful weather this afternoon. We're back on the turf. You can see main track listed as good. The turf is firm. So pretty excited for the races today. And only 2 scratches on the card, which is always nice.
You can count them. 1, 2, buckle your shoe on a abbreviated 8-race program as we gallop towards the halfway point of this 40-day fall meet. It's already day number 18. Obviously, Saturday will be the halfway point. 10 races on that Saturday card with some big fields. Have you started Saturday yet?
I have, yes.
There's some hard races.
Tough races.
Yeah,
some tough races for sure.
Now, I thought today was rather manageable. Those are the usual famous last words. When you say that, you think it'll be fairly logical and formful, and you wind up having a bunch of 20-to-1 shots that win. We'll see. We'll give you a little rundown and a little housekeeping. That's what we do at this time of the day here on Gulfstream Park West today. And it all begins a little after 1:15 p.m. with race number 1 in that 50-cent early pick 5. A couple races later, we'll have 8 fillies and mares in race number 3, and that'll jumpstart the opening super high.
It will. Keep an eye out for that. Any race with 7 or more runners, and then that also does kick off our Rainbow 6. That carryover is still building. $113,000 plus, just a 20-cent wager as always. And then we have the late pick 5 that will kick off in race number 4.
One single alive in yesterday's cash out, the 8th race, and that single did not win. The 8th race belonged to Flemish Cap, who I think we've got to give, even though it was yesterday, a little love to. He's just really turned into a consistent type horse, and you can almost read and see the determination and the resolve on his face, turning for home in his races. He's just a real tough competitor.
He certainly is, and I think that the connections were probably pretty happy to see him come in off the main track only list and get the win there. It was also a pretty good day for Emisel Jaramillo, 4 wins on the card.
No doubt, and Emisel in action in today's first race, and it's a good one to start out the program. And I think this first race on the Thursday card sets the table and the scene for a solid day of racing here in South Florida. Now, the pick 5 begins, and this is a real doozy of a race. This is a quality, talented field of filly and mare sprinters, and I'm curious to see who you used in the pick 5.
Well, I would have liked to use a lot more than the 3 that I did use, and you can see my comment, just competitive opener, because it's just a lot of quality. So I went with the horses I thought could succeed tactically, but again, would have liked to even use maybe 1 or 2 more, because I think it's just, you can make an argument for several horses. Second race, the biggest question is who's going to improve. I do prefer Casino Kid on the drop. I did use Grand Godspeed as well. That's another race I think you could use some more coverage if you do have an opinion. Using 3 horses in the third race, that also kicks off our Rainbow 6. Fourth race, going to be using just 2 as well, with Judith's Nation and Brave Request, several longtime maidens in this field. And in the 5th race, I think I have one of the best speed horses in Toykin, and perhaps the best closer in ours again for Mike Maker.
Even if something goofy wins, say race 3 or 4, because I don't know just how much confidence or trust you can have in the shorter priced horses who look good on paper. I don't fully trust them, nor do you. I think between Toykin and ours again, you can kind of go too deep there and double whatever ticket you're putting in, but almost be pretty confident that one of those 2, I think, should get it done, barring any crazy result in today's 5th race. Now, as far as this first race goes, I almost broke it down, at least on paper, into 2 groups. The older season mares, like the 1 Imnaha and the 3 April Rose, who have done some good things, against more of the lightly race runners, the 3-year-olds and the 2 Hollywood Royal, who I have second. Beneath the other 3-year-old in the race, the number 5 Stella Performance. The starting point, though, I think, to be fair, is April Rose. She's done some pretty good things. The problem is, at least for me, she hasn't run in quite some time.
She's coming off the layoff, and we'll backtrack to January and show her last race. The reason that I did end up picking her, there are a couple of things. She's the number 6 there. This is on January 21st, so it's been about 9 months, really, since she has run. And there was a lot of commotion early on, some bumping. She's on the outside there in the black cap, very game, and she ends up pulling away. A little bit of bumping in the stretch, but all in all, she was very tenacious in this race. I think tactically it's going to set up for her to sit just behind the pace with quite a few potential early pace setters in this opening race, and I just think that she has faced top to bottom the toughest competition. Even though she's off the layoff, she certainly looks to be the class at the field. She ran against Goodbye Sorrow and Glasshouse last time, facing Scuba Sue, Mia Tori, some really solid mares prior to that layoff.
Oh, I noted the company lines for sure, and the fact that she hasn't missed a beat in her races, even though they were quite a while ago off the claim on the turf for trainer Steve Caceres. That leads us, though, into the layoff and what race and effort you might expect out of April Rose today. And I had played around with Formulator and across the board, and I know we have a stat to show you with Steve Caceres and April Rose. It's basically a pretty average move for the barn. The 6+ month layoffs I played around with were all around 15% or so, but this is all claiming in turf sprints off a 6-month layoff or greater.
And this is a stat that Ron did find. You can see it is just a small sample size, but there is a positive return of investment. So just a little food for thought. As you said, it is kind of an average move and just not really something that we see very frequently. That being said, again, I just do think that she's the class, and that's why I ended up using her on top, but I don't think she's a complete single or a lock.
No, if she had a race under her belt and returned with a good effort, whether it was a win or not, you might feel, or at least I would feel, maybe a little more confident in her. And I feel as though Stella Performance is getting back to what she wants to do, and that is be a turf sprinter. I've got no qualms with her second most recently on the dirt in the slop behind a filly who's pretty good, and Rich Mommy, who's 3 for 8. And I really felt in hindsight Stella Performance probably needed that race. At least I hope she needed that race off the bench. It was like a 4-month layoff back on August 12th. I think she is still on the improve, and I'm going to take her on the come here with Edgar Zayas. And I would not sell either the 2 Hollywood Royal short, one of 2 in the race for Mark Cassie, and Imnaha deserves a little respect. I had looked at her race as a case on paper, mainly that last out effort against Tilly's Lily, thinking, well, it was probably a suck-up type performance, suck-up second, but she really closed gamely in that race, and it was more than just closing after the race was already over.
She did, and I have to admit, she really proved me wrong last time because I had really preferred her more as a 2-turn type horse in her last couple of races. She's been going the 5/8, and I thought that when she was surrounded by 2 next out winners, including Tilly's Lily, who's been very good for Jonathan Thomas, I think that she closed very gamely, and if there is a lot of pace up front, she could be one who's just kind of finding her stride, going this 5-furlong distance that could be closing into it.
As she looks for her first win on the year. And speaking of that, Tilly's Lily won again last week out at Santa Anita. She's now a perfect 3 for 3 and really looks like a filly that might be making some noise late this year, and of course looking forward to 2018. As we head to the main track, that's what I like about the early double today. It's 1-1, one on the turf, and then our second race on the dirt. We do go the 2 turns, 2-turn mile, in fact, in this low level 12-5 maiden claimer. And these are 2-year-olds. They've all got to go a mile, and that's what really complicates this race. Nobody's run particularly well. No one's run all that fast, whatever speed figures you use. And in the end, I'm just going to take a shot, and it's a small one with the 5, Grand Godspeed. Acacia and I with the old 4-5 exacta box. Things to like about Grand Godspeed. Second time this meet for Victor Barbosa Jr. And then Casino Kid has faced like grade 1 horses compared to a group like this.
Yes, you could certainly say that. Casino Kid, who I did land on, debuted in special weight company, and as you said, it was just much tougher, top to bottom, than what he'll face. He dropped last time, but that was on the turf, so this is, considering dirt form, a very significant class relief. He also has Sammy Camacho in the saddle. He and Patrick Bancone have had some nice wins together, so I do think that that's perhaps the key with this one. But as far as Grand Godspeed, there is some distance pedigree on the bottom side as well. The dam's only win was going long on the dirt, and he's off to multiple stakes place Flame Broiled, who was a distance dirt runner as well. So maybe that's a good sign, though we have not seen quite as high numbers from the Barbosa Barn that we did back in the summer.
No, it's been a quiet 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks here in Miami Gardens for Victor Barbosa Jr., and I think maybe to an extent that could be expected. I mean, he did run a lot of horses fairly late in the summer meet over at Gulfstream Park. He won 29 races. He's lost a lot of horses, especially late in the meet. He was running, it seemed like, quite a few that were taking fairly aggressive and well-meant drops, and those horses got claimed. Horses go through conditions. Horses have setbacks. So you combine all that, maybe it is to be expected for this barn to kind of hit a bit of a lull. They also have the one grand network from the rail in race number 2. We'll see what happens. Again, they've all got to stay that 1 mile distance. It's a big gray area for all. Now we'll take a little time out with the early double down, super high 5, and a little rainbow 6 action when we come back.
I'm Javier Castellano.
I am Joel Rosario.
I'm John Velasquez. For the first time ever, the Clásico del Caribe will be at Gulfstream Park. Entertainment, special events, and the best horses from Latin America and the Caribbean. Right here in South Florida.
Right here in South Florida. It's a thrilling, it's a popular, it's an international, the Clásico del Caribe. It's coming to Gulfstream Park.
The Clásico del Caribe is coming to Gulfstream Park on December 9th.
I'll be there. Will you?
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
And welcome back to this live Thursday edition from our Gulfstream studios. Acacia and Jason on this Thursday edition of GPW today, and 113,000 plus in that Rainbow 6, as well as the opening super high 5 on today's card. It all takes place in race number 3, and a little rundown to my ticket. It's a fairly modest play today. Didn't want to give out too big a number. I'm all about getting value and some bang for your buck. The real key in this entire Rainbow 6 sequence to me, Acacia, is go Hippo go in the last. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think Go Hippo Go is going to have a lot of weight to carry, as that's my single in the late pick 5, and we'll get there in just a little bit, but just looks far and above the best in that race, I think, for Ralph Nix.
I like the 7th race quite a bit, and the more I looked at it, though, and there's some honest, consistent, hard-trying turf claimers in that race, I feel as though you get the bold sort of a speed horse that you just can't retain in Weezagon Gray. He's out there doing his thing on the point, and then the best closer who might just be the best horse in Regal Kitten. So fairly light but confident with the 5 and 8 in race number 7. The 6th race on the afternoon, Paravavir ran really well most recently for Victor Barbosa Jr. I picked her on top. I will also use the number 7 Threat, and then a 3-horse spread to start things out in race number 3. The first half of this Thursday Rainbow gave me the most problems. I feel even at short prices, and they're very logical horses, the second half of this sequence, I feel pretty confident that those horses are going to run and run very well. Races 3, 4, and even, well, the 5th I'm confident in taking. It's the 3rd and 4th that are really going to give me fits, and clearly you agree. And my question to you is, what are you doing in this first race? Do you fully trust the 8 night before, who I picked on top?
I picked her on top as well, though I don't fully trust her. I think there's a couple good things to like with this filly. She gets a significant drop in class. That's definitely a plus. I know that her only win did come on a sealed sloppy track, and yes, she won by open lengths that day, but I've always said this, it's something about Louis Duco on off tracks. When he decides to keep a horse in, they're often very well spotted and they get the win at the right level, which I think is key. This, I think, is going to be the right spot for this filly. She actually ran okay in a couple of her turf races at a lower level claiming tag for the maidens. Evaldo Santana in the saddle, he's had a very good start to the meet. So yes, the drop is going to be key, but I was intrigued by Northern Alliance and Nightstorm, both of whom I think have the potential to move forward.
The more I looked at Nightstorm getting prepped for this show, I said, probably should have had this horse in the top 4. Pedro Castillo, this is just kind of a shrewd outfit. You're always looking at, even with that win last time out for a different trainer at almost 25 to 1 right around the 4th of July. And of the two, though, Northern Alliance makes a lot more logical sense, a lot more formful sense on paper. As you would think, this horse is the new face, no doubt. And if those synth races at Presque Isle correlate or translate to a good effort on the GPW green, this horse is going to be right there.
And she definitely has recency on her side as far as her good form. She's had 3 wins. They've all been recent. There's turf pedigree on the bottom side as well. The dam was a 2-time turf winner, and she actually had a sibling that was a 5-time grass winner as well.
All right, we'll see. Lucca Panucci picking up the mount on the Francis McNeely train Northern Alliance. Race number 4 on just an 8 race, day number 18 this fall here at GPW. Will, believe it or not, start the late pick 5. It's a 3 and up, $10,000 maiden claimer. And did you use just the 4 and 5 in the opening leg like the early pick 5?
I did, and I'm a little bit nervous about this, but this is a race that's just full of questions. I think Brave Request, it's the first time going the mile distance for this one. Maybe he can just move forward today, going to be using the same 2, the speed and the closer. In the 5th race, I wanted to spread in the 6th. I thought that was a competitive race for the 12-5 claimers. You could make an argument for several. I like Threat, I like Para Vivir as well, but I wanted to use a couple others. 7th race, the big question is, can Regal Kitten pull the repeat? Very keen early on last time out. I also included Rizwan in addition to Regal Kitten and Weeza Gone Gray. And then in my last race, you can see Hippo just looks best. We'll see if Go Hippo Go can just go.
I wonder if you've ever said, or if it's ever been uttered, Go Hippo Go before in the history of horse racing. I'd like to know the backstory with the name on that gelding by Miz and Mast, and we'll talk about his chances as a likely, unless they bet one of the first-time turfers or one of the firsters, you're probably looking at a stone-cold odds-on favorite to end the day for Top Connections. But it all begins as far as the late 5 with race number 4. You have the speed of Brave Request versus sort of the plodding closing style of the number 4 Judas Nathan, who for me seemed maybe just slightly more capable in staying this 2-turn mile, and that's why I picked him.
Certainly could. And last time out, he showed that he could go the mile. He was 3rd. It was a distant 3rd at that. But I thought Brave Request, on the stretch out once again, comes out of a good race with 2 next out winners. And he just has something that a couple other horses in here don't have, and that's that he's never been beaten at this distance before. So I'm hoping that that just helps him take a step forward, because you have Brave Request is 0 for 11, Judas Nathan 0 for 8. These horses have kind of started to rack up the defeats.
Oh, yeah.
And you just kind of have to hope that today might be the day.
And he might get Brave on the front end. I'd be surprised if Brave Request wasn't the controlling speed in this race. And it's funny, just not to spend too much time on the 4th, but the ebb and flow of even these lower level maiden claimers. The field he's coming out of that he faced on October 7th, I think those horses are so much better than what he encounters here.
Yes, yes. So
Right?
top to bottom was a good race for sure.
Yeah, Comic Relief was kind of my weirdo horse, just because I feel like he's got, and you clearly saw the same thing, between slop, turf, layoff, comes back against Go Gon Gon and Gasper Latrobe. Those horses are eons better than what he faces today in the 4th. And then his last race was 5/8 on the turf. Who knows if he can run, but maybe today's the day against this kind on the dirt, fast track and all, or a track that might be on the good side of fast. Maybe today's the day he shows up.
Yeah, he certainly could be. He kind of looks like a wise guy horse to me. He was actually my long shot either last time or 2 starts ago. And you're absolutely right. He's just had so many races that you can't really figure out what kind of horse he really is.
And that looks like a positive going into a field where he's got to run, to be blunt about it, against Judas Nathan and Brave Request. Now, the 5th on the card, we get a little more form to sink your teeth into here. And I think that certainly if you're playing the rainbow or both pick 5s today, that's certainly a good thing. And you get that reliable speed from the number 4 Toykin, who was cut down last time by a legit turf sprinter around these parts for the level. And I go for greatness. I respect the speed out of Toykin, and clearly you do as well.
I do, and we'll show that race. This was back on October 12th, off of a little bit of a freshening from August. You can see he was the number 2. Nothing really to highlight except that he just sent. I Go for Greatness was the number 3 behind him, chasing him, ended up running him down, but he was very far ahead of the rest. You can see very quick fractions as well for this race, and that's just kind of what he always does. He just goes out and kind of runs as quickly as he possibly can. Now, as far as other speed in here, Woo Here We Go is not slow early. I just think Toykin is a bit of a better horse than Woo Here We Go.
Yes, I hate using the term, or maybe it's unfair in this case, in cheap speed, but Woo Here We Go, and I say that with peace and love. I don't know come crunch time when, as silly as it sounds, he's chasing or looking eye to eye with Toykin. Toykin's just a much better horse. And then, look, if Toykin, for whatever reason, doesn't care for a turf course that took some rain throughout Tuesday and a rainy, dark day, Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday morning, ours again looks like the kind of horse that might just pick up the pieces.
Certainly could. His race at Arlington 2 starts back was very strong. He was beaten just by 3/4 of a length. Last time you put a line through it that was taken off of the turf. He's got Tyler Gaffalione in the saddle today for Mike Maker. So I think that this is certainly, as we said, you've got the speed, you've got the closer. One of these should be successful in here.
Famous last words.
Right.
Should be successful as the 2 favorites in race number 5. 6th race on the program. These are 12-5, 3 and up filly mare claimers. Once again, meeting on the dirt, you might imagine by this point in the day, because you couldn't ask for a better weather day as far as Mother Nature is concerned. You might be dealing, we might all be dealing with a dry, fast track by the time the 6th race rolls around. And I guess the question becomes, what does the 8 Para Vivir do in her 2nd consecutive start, sprinting on the dirt for Victor Barbosa? I looked at her last going in, much like Imnahan the first. Wow, that looks just like a suck-up third, but she really ran well last time.
She had a huge late run, and we'll show that race on October 6th. It was right here at Gulfstream Park West, and it looked like she had kind of had, you could see she's almost out of the screen. We have her highlighted at the back. She has the white blinkers on. She ended up closing very, very wide. Again, the number 3, and now she's out of the screen again. If we can just freeze right there. Here she comes on the outside here. You can see you kind of have all of these big player horses up front, and it looks like she's not going to make any sort of dent at all as we let it roll down to the wire. She had kind of found her home on the turf. A disappointing race, 2 starts back, and then this race taken off of the turf. Here's that huge explosive turn of foot. They, I think, make the right decision, keep her on the dirt, and I looked up some stats for the barn with a 50% tag drop and in the money last time out. 2 for 5 winning and 4 for 5 in the money. So not a big sample size, but Victor Barbosa knows where to put the horses.
And she comes out of a good race. That Nola Fashion's very consistent, in good form, and very honest. And even My Cotton Rose hit the board yesterday, returning over a very sloppy track here at GPW. You got the 2 guys from Venezuela. I mean, there are a number of sharp, whether you're talking about jockeys or trainers, born and raised in Venezuela, who are now plying their trade in South Florida. And not only is Victor Barbosa Jr. in the mix, Gilberto Zerpa may have the wild card in the number 7 threat. The fact that he saw fit to go back in and reclaim this horse.
Absolutely, and we've said this before. This barn puts horses where they can be successful, not really as concerned with losing them perhaps in a claiming race. So the fact that he does go and reach back in for this filly again, I think is a good sign. He had some success with her, switching her from the turf to the dirt, and she will stay on the dirt today.
Let's move on to race number 7. Likable crew here in the second to last race on the program, and legit claimers for 12-5. You get some bang for your buck with these horses who are running for a $20,000 purse. On the turf at 7.5 furlongs. In fact, an all-turf late double to end things on this day number 18 of the fall meet at Gulfstream Park West. And there's something to be said about Regal Kitten. I've really become a fan of this horse after winning, what did he win, 5 consecutive races earlier in the year through basically Kentucky Derby weekend. Looked like maybe his top form started to elude him for a bit, but his last couple for Rohan Crichton, I think, shows, and they show that he's back on the top of his game.
He's been in very good form lately. We'll show his last race. There's a couple other horses that were in that race as well, including Rizwan and Good and Proper. We're going to focus in on Regal Kitten, who's out at the front right now. Rizwan, the number 6, ends up closing very, very wide. In this race, Regal Kitten was very keen. He wanted to get to the front. If we'll just freeze right there. I love that they've taken the blinkers off Rizwan because you can see his big white face. He's out in the front, and here's Regal Kitten, or excuse me, Rizwan to the back, Regal Kitten on the front end as we let it go down to the wire. My concern here is if Regal Kitten gets keen again like he did right here at Gulfstream Park West, and he's up close with Weeza Gone Gray, could Rizwan come running like he did here?
Maybe. That was like Regal Kitten robbed the bank, and everybody else, those were like the cops chasing him. There was just an army, a fleet of horses hot on his tail. That's what that race looked like to me. Like he had just robbed the bank and he was trying to get out of Dodge. I just like the handiness of Regal Kitten. You'll take Rizwan to come back, and it'd be funny if this horse, who's just won for his last 17, and it had been well over 2 years since he had actually won a race, if he winds up winning 2 out of his last 3, as he is in good form, and of course he finally was able to shed that bridesmaid status couple starts back by a half length on September 27th. What about our old boy Weezagon Gray, part of the Gulfstream Park and GPW fabric, given the fact that Ron Nicoletti had liked this horse in 2 consecutive races, one in which he paid about $100.
Oh, yeah.
And then he came back and paid like 40 or 50 bucks. That'll never happen again. I wish it would happen once for me.
Yeah.
I'd even take the $100 winner. Forget about coming back and returning for another score. But, man, you can set your watch to Weezagon Gray just breaking, getting out there, and taking them as far as he can possibly take them.
He has so much heart, and I think Edgar Zayas really rides this horse down to the wire. He made such a big difference in these last 2 races, tried so hard 2 starts back. I think Vigas was just a much stronger horse on that day, sat perfectly in the pocket. Last time out, he managed to hold on so gamely. He got the win. Unfortunately, he was the favorite that time, did not pay $100 to win. Edgar would stay up. He's got that early speed. We know he's going to go from the outside, and he's definitely an easy horse to root for.
Now, do we have a stat here with Rohan Crichton and the number 5 Regal Kitten? Is this a last out winner stat? Let's take a little look-see.
Winners last time out in turf routes in claiming. So very specific stat. This is over the past 5 years. So again, not a big sample size, but it is a positive ROI. More than half the time in the money for a very good barn.
All right, a very niche stat there. A lot going on, but at 2 for 10, there you go. All right, let's move on to race number 8 as we finish things off, and it's now time to talk about Go, Hippo, Go. If we run into Stacy Nix today, we'll have to ask her if she knows why and how this horse was named Go Hippo Go. I get the feeling, and this is just a speculation and an assumption, that as time has gone on, and we're seeing it basically, Acacia, on a day-by-day basis, these 2-year-old races, be it special weights or maiden claimers, seem to be getting tougher and tougher. We're running into a bunch of shippers from the Midwest and up north who are coming down to winter in South Florida, and maybe with such a rainy October, Ralph Nix is saying, you know what, I got a green light to run this horse on the turf. Let me just do it, even though it's a pretty big drop. And it looks like this horse in a special weight might have been competitive. He
was very good last time. You had the presence of Todd Fletcher last time out in Channel Cat. There was some bumping in the stretch with Speed Franco being disqualified. Go Hippo Go was not affected, but he showed a lot of speed last time, which I did like. He was actually dueling up front. There was a pretty hot pace duel. Closers caught up to him, but he was very game to hold on. So he is taking a drop in here. But I think after that last race, the fact that Tyler Gaffalione up today, as we said earlier, just looks far and above the best. Comatine also came back to win out of that race with a 70 Beyer speed figure next time out. So it's proved to be a very good race.
And unless someone really takes a step forward, you've got a couple of firsters. A number of the horses in here are running on the turf for either the first or second time. I mean, it just looks like Go Hippo Go is much faster. I had a little bit of an issue with the drop because, again, I feel like he could be running in special weights with you know, almost double the purse than what he's running for today for $26K. But again, they only paid $10,000 for him, and not to belabor the point, but I feel like, you know what, you got the green light to run this Oklahoma bred on the turf today in a rainy fall here in South Florida. Take it. For me, the 4 merry-go-round of the firsters was most intriguing, by overdriven, and the dam's been fairly solid. Included is Matt King Cole, who's you know, legit stakes horse for Linda Rice, but Federal Reserve is in the family as well, and he's won a couple of turf sprint races right on this circuit.
There is a little bit of turf pedigree for sure. Now, Dave Brady, great trainer, but first-time starters on the turf, not his most productive move, just 2 for 20 over the past 5 years.
He's 5 for 80 with firsters in general.
Yes.
So
when you put it down on the turf, though, a little bit more narrow, but certainly Emi Jaramillo doing a great job. I included Motatan with his experience on the turf last time. Even though he was DQ'd, it was a good race from him. And the firster that intrigued me was the 2 Silent Citizen. Just a good barn with first-time starters.
All right, hat trick firster going out for trainer Efren Lozer Jr. Do love the hat tricks. Not my favorite, though. Maltese Dog is definitely my favorite. And I'll tell you, speaking of Maltese Dog, Armando de la Cerda has got an Illinois bred running on Saturday against Yager in the 6th race by a Illinois, I'm assuming an Illinois-based sire, in 3-hour nap.
All right.
So I gave that horse a little bit of love and attention in my Saturday analysis. I love sort of backyard, non-played out pedigrees, and there are a few floating around here in South Florida. All right, the birthday girl, and happy birthday, by the way, Acacia and myself with you all day, along with Ron Nicoletti in the walking ring, and we'll send it up for those Thursday scratches and changes.
The Pegasus World Cup Invitational is January